these different situations that keep popping up in my life, taking me through these different struggles. What is God trying to say? And I heard God saying, stay in the present moment. So today I want to talk about staying in the present moment. BJ, in partial requirements, are writing an impressive sermon on being present. I feel that one should do some historical research regarding the definition of what it means. Doing some research and study, I learned that present means being, existing, Brandon, occurring at this time and now, which simply means, Johnny, being here. Turn to your neighbor right now and ask them, are you present? Recognize from a deeper study that present means to furnish or endow with a gift. I looked a little further and acknowledged that present means to bring, offer, or give, often in a formal or ceremonious way. Rionica, looking at these practical and reasonable meanings of the word present, I was able to formulate a spiritual understanding of this word present. And I came to the understanding that present means, Elton, prize. Present means prize. And because I am the prize, that, Miss Davis, makes me the present. Being present is the act of or action towards. A present being presented or someone being present. So in this inspiring sermon, I've searched myself and came to understand what staying in the present moment, Krishanda, means, and would like to talk to you about a few ways how I've learned how to stay in the present moment. During Christmas when I was growing up, Johnny, as a child in my house, seemed like the best Christmases a child could have. Most of what I got, I asked for, and most of what I didn't get, 9 times out of 10, I would get it later on. I can honestly say that what society perpetuated about the youngest upper middle class child during that time about being spoiled was true. I would concur that being spoiled is staying in the present moment. I can't get a witness in here today. I know we're few in numbers, but can I get some help? At that time during the holidays, I was so spoiled, brother, so much I would forget about everything else and just spoil myself. I can remember a couple of Christmases when I was younger, BJ. I brought everyone that would come to our Christmases a 10 or 12 pack of gum. Dad would give me and my brothers $300 to go shopping every year. It was really easy because most of our Christmases shopping was at Walmart, and Walmart is really cheap, so I would just go to the candy and gum section thinking this is something, Brandon, that everyone can use from time to time, especially, Miss Davis, my older brother Taylor. My brother Taylor would have some of the foulest breath, so this seemed to be the perfect Christmas present for him. I would knock all of my Christmas shopping out in one blow. Then I would proceed to buy things for myself. Sports gear, video games, different toys, or whatever I thought was cool that I thought I should have. When you love yourself, BJ, and spoil yourself, you also think and understand others. What others need. Let me say that again. When you love yourself and spoil yourself, you also think and understand what others need as opposed to what others desire. I knew my brother needed mid-fresh gum. A young, handsome black man in middle school, just starting to understand what it means to be aroused by a girl cannot approach her with breast cancer and expect healthy results. No, you'll get cancerous results. So it was my duty as being a brother and staying in the present moment to give him breast cancer treatment. Some of us in here right now at this time are sitting down with breast cancer. So I encourage those that spoil themselves so greatly to reach out to them, understand what they need as opposed to what they want, and get them some treatment. Understand that you are spoiled, that you do not want to smell someone's bad breath. By this, you are able to stay in the present moment and help the individual with need. Staying in the present moment is being present and receiving everything that God has for you. Johnny, I was aware that during Christmas that I had to give everyone a gift. And on top of that, I was smart enough to get everyone a gift that I knew that they could use. So I didn't limit my presents. I saw fit to get everything that God had for me. Turn to someone and say, a fair trade isn't stealing.
Fair trade.
A fair trade isn't stealing. I guarantee if I was not present at the time my father had given me the $300, I'm pretty sure I would have gotten anyone anything. But because I was present, I was able to not only give everyone something like I was supposed to, but get myself all that I had desired that Christmas. Understanding that staying in the present moment is more for you than the one you are speaking to or listening to. In being engaged with one another on either both sides. Undisputed 3. It's a movie out there called Undisputed 3. It's a good fighting action movie. The main character of the movie is Russian and the co-star is black. And he's always running his mouth. During one of the scenes, the black and the Russian fight each other because the Russian tells the black man to shut his effing mouth. How the fight goes down is rather funny, BJ, because the black man proceeds to talk at the Russian and the Russian just hits him in the mouth. So they both get put into solitary confinement next to each other and the black man is continuously talking at the Russian. The black man says something equivalent to punks hit someone without giving them some type of warning. The Russian responds and says, where I'm from, you don't speak unless you have something to say. It was clear that the black man had something to say and the Russian clearly did not want to listen or hear. The black man asked the Russian what should he do because he gets claustrophobic in small, tight places. The Russian responded, I think you should kill yourself. I died laughing because the Russian was so irritated with the black man just talking at him. It got to the point where the black man just started talking to himself. The Russian was himself quiet, and the black man was talking one way or another. Then the present began to happen. Brethren, they started to listen to one another. Because the black man began to understand the sanctity of silence, and the Russian started to understand what it meant, Drew, just to have someone to talk to. I told this scene in the movie to say this. Learn from each other. When you pay attention to each other, that's also what it means to stay present. As I got older, not only mature, nature made me detached from things, but maturity also helped me die to a lot of things I didn't need anymore and resurrected me to a stronger, more evolved Eddie. Understanding is staying in the present moment. When we understand something, we often say, I see. Oh, I got you. I get it. Oh, word? For real? We see something we hadn't seen before. Buddha says understanding comes from within us, and when we do understand, we can touch deeply the present moment. We can see and listen deeply. And the fruit fruits are always acceptance, love, and the desire to relieve suffering and bring joy. At an early age, I was diagnosed with ADHD. Anybody in here know what ADHD is? Attention deficit hyperactive disorder. My mother immediately believed them because she couldn't understand why my conduct was so bad and my grades were so good. I could because I was too intelligent at that school. It was my mother's fault. She taught me math when I was little, reading and science at an early age, so everything came so easy to me, Drew. I became bored easily, learning their history and other BS ways they was trying to teach me because I already knew it, or really didn't think it was relevant to my life. I understood everything in a matter of minutes, and because they couldn't understand why I understood so easily, then they wanted to diagnose me as a mentally challenged kid. The fact was I was too smart, Johnny. And the stuff that they was giving me wasn't challenging enough. Eventually my conduct got worse. And it affected my grades. Missing school and missing work, not being able to make it up. I was prescribed medication. And I hated the medication for ADHD because one med would make me lose my appetite. Another medication would make me gassy. Another medication would make me sleepy. And then most of the time the medication would just not make me feel like who I was, like myself. I didn't feel like Eddie. Some of us in here right now are living with medication because we decided to not be present and make some bad choices in our lives. Or better yet, living behind our medications because we are too depressed and don't want to face our reality. Turn to your neighbor and say, you know what your medication is.
You know what your medication is.
I was stagnant. All I could do was think about the stuff I wanted to do. Understanding is the ability to see patterns, Drew. See patterns of behavior and values that reveal the integrity of a people. Krishanda, apparently my parents at that time thought myself, Eddie, was on the way to destruction, so something had to happen. Well, first and foremost, since I hated that medication so much, I had to devise a way to make my parents feel like I had took it. So I would hold the medication in my mouth on the side, and when my parents would turn their heads, I would spit it out into my hand and put it in the garbage or flush it down the toilet. Most of the time when I put it in the garbage, I would get caught, so I would have to, majority of the time, flush it down the toilet. But it wasn't until after a few years my parents had realized that I had dreaded taking that medication and would do everything in my power not to take it. Understanding is the very foundation of love. When you understand someone, you can help but love them. You cannot help but love them when you understand. My mother and father understood and said, well, if you don't want to take your meds and you get in trouble, then your punishment will be more severe. Anything was better than taking that medication. I still got in trouble, but not the way I used to. I just became a little bit more slicker at what I was doing. I thank God they were not forcing me to take that medication anymore. Seemed like the more they would force me to take that medication, the more I would rebel. I tell this story to tell you this. Don't let it take years for you to understand. Let me say this again. Don't let it take years for you to understand. Be in that moment at that time and really take the time out to understand what's really going on. Sometimes we just have to listen and really pay attention because when we don't, we clearly miss what that person has been trying to say for years. Mom, Dad, I hate taking the medication. You see all the stuff that I'm doing. You see I'm putting it in the trash. You see I'm flushing it down the toilet. take the time out and pay attention to what's really going on. My dad told me the reason that most people cheat in relationships is because they're misunderstood.
Wow.
If no one takes the time out to actually listen to what people have to say, or just show them that they truly care, then that person is bound to cheat. Mentally, emotionally, sexually, you name it. The worst thing that can happen in a relationship is being misunderstood. The process of understanding is seeing through the other's eyes, empathizing. Understanding is staying in the present moment because it brings out the good morality and integrity while having humility. Do you think my behavior would have changed during that time that I was taking that medication if my parents had understood me back then? Do you think that would have made some kind of difference just for my parents to understand what was going on? Because I understood that my parents wanted me to do well in school, but they didn't understand the fact that I hated the medication. Do you think that it would have made a difference? I think it would have made a difference. How can we stay in the present moment when we don't understand? We can't. And for many of us, it takes more than one time of explaining. When I'm reading a book, I gotta read the book or that passage maybe 3 or 4 times before I really get it. When somebody is talking to me and I only got one ear, y'all, most of y'all know I can't hear out of one ear. You gotta really say it. You gotta really repeat it for me to really get it. Take the time out to really understand. Most times we don't understand because we're not present with ourselves. Living false realities, selling ourselves dreams, living in fantasy worlds, so we can't even begin to get into the present if we have all the way in the past or we're all the way in the future, and neither one of them are here. Here's a quote. Many people live their whole lives lost in thoughts of the past and the future. Yet we only truly live life when we are present to the moment. And being present means being fully conscious of what goes on so we can participate fully and appropriately in the opportunities that present themselves. We constantly review things that have already happened, trying to explain them in terms of our own actions or even someone else's actions. All that kind of thinking does is lead to guilt or blaming. We live in the future when we make assumptions or fantasize about what could happen and then become attached to those things, expected outcomes, when the reality of the matter is it's not real, and when that happens we end up disappointed off of a false reality. Whether we are consumed with positive expectations, Brandon, some people call that being optimistic. True or negative projections. Some call that being pessimistic. We are not staying in the present moment. Another famous quote by Annie Dillon: how we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. While spending your life living in a false reality, you have become just as false as the reality that you are living in. We lose the power of the present moment because we're really rarely into it. We're reliving the past or speculating about the future, Johnny. We continue to believe that tomorrow's the day when I'll be more capable, I'll be more wealthy, more fit, more loving. Yet, intuition, creativity, connection, soul, and inspiration are available only in the present moment. Most times we can't get out of these false realities because we are so distracted distracted from the stuff that surrounds us. I'll make this last point, and then I'm through. Eradicating distractions is how we stay present. Those medications that I was taking when I was on ADHD, when I was diagnosed with ADHD, was a distraction. Most times when I was on those meds, all I wanted to do was just sit down, be quiet, and just think about what I could be doing. BJ, I could pay attention in class and learn something new, but I was on that meditation distracted. I could be hollering at that fine girl sitting next to me, looking at me googly-eyed. I could sing along in choir rehearsal with everyone else. I could turn in my book and follow along with my teacher, like he or she asks. But I'm too busy thinking about all the things I could be doing instead of doing it. I'm grown now, a 27-year-old man, and still have distractions. I go on a date. Y'all don't hear me in here. I go on a date and I'm easily distracted. It's always someone I know, so I feel like I need to speak to them, but I know in the back of my mind that if I don't speak to them, they'll be okay. Holding conversations with someone while I planned to go on a date with someone else. Texting on my phone instead of engaging in what she has to say and hearing only bits and pieces of her story. Distracted. Drew playing basketball in the gym, and an extremely fine, curvy-shaped woman walks by, and I just completely lose focus. Distracted. Talking to someone about one thing, and another one walks up, just interrupts because I allow them to. Distracted. Hell, I'm writing this sermon, and I'm getting mega calls and text messages on my phone right now, got me feeling like I'm missing something. Distracted. A friend of mine, while I was writing this sermon, a friend of mine, while I'm in the middle of concluding my sermon, just texted me. Outside block party and concert behind MJQ's right now, bro. Crazy. I might have just had a good thought pop up in my head, but guess what? Distracted. That thought's gone. Completely. Major distractions. I'm writing my sermon and he hits me with that. All I can think of right now is what is going on over there. I know I'm missing something. Distractions. BJ, knowing I'm writing the sermon to help liberate and save someone else and myself. Most of our distractions are our own fault. Let me just be real in here. Most of our distractions are our own fault. We can't blame it on no one else. We are responsible for eliminating our distractions. My God, Brother Elton, yesterday, writing my sermon, text me while I was writing my sermon. Brother, I'm hungry. Let's go eat. I'm not even thinking about food. I'm not even thinking about it. I'm thinking about my sermon. All of a sudden, I'm hungry. Distractions. The faster we rid ourselves of our distractions, the easier it is for us to stay in the present moment. Pastor A, how is it that we rid ourselves of distractions? When you find yourself thinking of the future or the past, bring your awareness into the present. Really experience how you feel and what's happening around you. And experience it without judging it. Start hanging around non-distracted people if you can hang around them. If you can hang around them. If you treasure each moment, your lives will be rich, no matter what you have accomplished. Isolate yourself and get back to who you are, Krishanda, and why you are here. If you hang around people that have a lot of distractions, that distraction is going to rub off on you, and the next thing you know, you are going to be majorly distracted. Reconstruct your lifestyle. Do less distracting things. First steps, and I'm going to be honest, the first steps are the hardest steps. Y'all don't hear me in here today. Leave your cell phone at home. How hard is it for some of us to leave your cell phone at home? Oh, when I open my eyes and I'm not the only one raising my hand. When you go on a date, leave your cell phone in the car. Or keep it on silent. Someone asks the question, well, what if it's an emergency? Your response should be that staying in the present moment with you is the emergency. Because if your presence is in the present moment, then God has a way of showing you where the emergency is coming from. You just have to be present. Learn how to do less distracting things like talking to everybody you see, that you know, and worrying about what you can't control. Oh my God. How many of us worry about what we can't control? I mean, honestly, we worry about stuff that we can't control. Can't pay your phone bill, Brandon, this month? Maybe it doesn't need to be paid. So you can be less distracted and focus on what it is you need to focus on to get ahead in life. We can't proceed to get ahead in life if we're so distracted. If I was to leave last night, right now, while I was in the middle of my sermon, going to that block party at MJQ's, I would have been behind and where God is trying to take me in this ministry. But in order for me to allow God to use me, I must change my condition so that God can put me in the right position. So instead, last night, I took my brother up on his offer as I conclude this sermon. Went and got me something to eat with him. And we met up about something, that was really important about a situation at the bottom that I was in, which was a situation that I had to handle, which was a whole lot more important than going to MJQ's. And it was because I was present. I knew that I wanted to go to MJQ's last night. I knew I wanted to see what was going on. But there were a lot more important things going on at that time too. As I close, being spoiled, receiving everything that God has for you, understanding, and eradicating your distractions, BJ, are ways of staying in the present moment. With this message, I pray that we are able to become more present to ourselves and to one another. Clap your hands for God's message.